The Mammoth deal, Matias Maccelli on the eve of free agency. What impact will it have? We'll take a look on today's Locked On Mammoth.
You are Locked On Mammoth, your daily podcast on the Utah Mammoth, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in once again to Locked On Mammoth. I'm veteran NHL voice Tom Callahan, joined as always by longtime team analyst Robyn Leonio. And together we are the dynamic duo that's going to walk you right through this trade for Matias Maccelli. We're going to look at the impact in free agency and another contract signing to talk about as well. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every single day when it comes to the Utah Mammoth. So, Robyn, you and I have changed all of our bullet points for this episode 300,000 times in probably the last, couple hours, because so much continues to happen. The Mammoth are active right now. They really are continuing to move pieces around on the chessboard, and Matias Maccelli, Delta Toronto, is the latest.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It is interesting just to get a little peek behind the curtain for everybody. Like, Tom and I were originally talking about having at first a conversation or talking about the introduction press conference for JJ Peterka. But hey, guess what? That's not happening until Thursday. So we had to push that back. We had to push that episode idea back. And then the Matias Maccelli news comes in, and a couple other things start rolling in. We're like, oh, wow. So we have a whole new episode to talk about. But here we are on the day of free agency from when everyone's listening to this episode. Speaking of which, for any Canadian fans listening to this, I just want to wish you guys a happy Canada Day. But yeah, Matias Maccelli getting traded the night before. Tom, we all saw this coming. We thought it was going to happen on day 2 of the draft. It didn't. So we thought, okay, if it's not happening day 2 of the draft, it's going to happen leading up to free agency.
Yeah, Robyn, we kind of knew, like we knew with Carcone, the writing was on the wall, I think, a little bit with Maccelli. Just a player who didn't quite seem to have a home, especially in the second half of the year as far as the Mammoth were concerned and their plans going forward. Brings back, at the very least, a third-round pick. It's a conditional third-round pick, which could improve to a second-round pick if the following conditions are met. Number one, the Leafs make the playoffs, and I think they will. But number two is if he happens to score 51 or more points this season. Now, if you look at his output the last couple of years, Robyn, you're probably thinking, probably not likely. But if Toronto, a team that is poised to lose Mitch Marner, did keep Matthew Nyes and John Tavares and brought them back into the fold, it is possible Maccelli could get middle 6, if not a little better time. And if he does, he could eclipse that 50-plus point barrier. And if so, it becomes a second rounder.
And I certainly think the potential's there, right? I've said it before, and I'll say it again, Tom. I have always had high hopes for Matias Maccelli. I have high expectations for him because he had a promising year, his first couple of years with the Tucson Roadrunners. So I'm like, okay, here's some benchmarks you can do. And I think that's a really good benchmark around that much points, because I think that shows that Toronto has that expectation for him as well for coming in. He's getting a fresh start, getting that opportunity, and with those potential line mates for him, it's certainly a good opportunity for him to get that fresh start.
And for Toronto, it's low risk. They're giving up a mid-round pick, which could turn into a second-round pick. For Utah, it's $3.425 million more dollars in cap space.
Correct.
And that is also big. Look, Bill Armstrong has said he's not going to go Mitch Marner type of money out there on a guy, but they've got some flexibility right now, Robyn. You really have to like where this leaves the Mammoth sitting.
It's really interesting you brought that up, because one of the things I don't think we really talked about was when Utah had that sign-in trade for JJ Peterka. That contract, ate up a decent chunk of what the cap space was. It went from $20 million down to $16 million, which really there's still a lot of space, but or even more, $14 million. Then it went to now it's at like $18.5 million back now because of this trade for Matias Maccelli. This is what the move was, right? To being able to add an extra roster spot and being able to get that extra cap flexibility so Utah can sign some other players down the road. And yes, and I'm talking about Logan Cooley for not this upcoming season, but the following season.
And it also opens up that flexibility of now there's 19 on the active roster instead of 20. So we're already talking about the possibility of Simashev and Boot taking spots.
Yeah.
That would put you to 21 as opposed to 22 and put you right up against it. And if there is any fire to the smoke around Barzal, what this move does is it allows you to pay Cooley somewhere in the $7-8 million range. Then Barzal comes in at 9.5, and that chews up the remainder of your space, but it's chewed it up. You've taken care of Cooley. Yeah, you'll have to do a little bit of gymnastics, but you do have some expiring contracts at the end of this coming season that could help you move stuff around as well. Don't forget, there's still a possibility of Jack McBain being in the mix and trying to figure out if they can sign him or not, or if, again,
I do want to get to that in a little bit too, Tom.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Jack McBain in a little bit, but but it's really interesting seeing the instant reaction. We're recording this pretty quickly after, let's say within the couple hours after the news happens. Your guys are all listening to this on the morning of free agency, so different. You guys had some time to digest, as I should say. But Tom, it's interesting though, because we all see Toronto fans, armchair GMs start instantly putting out their reactions. And it's funny because they're like, oh, wow, it's a Toronto fleece. And I'm like, I don't know in what world is that a fleece. I think it's all right. I will be honest. It is leaned in favor of Toronto because they have a roster player who can play now. But that's what they need versus for the Mammoth, as we talked about, is that extra cap space and roster spot for those incoming players. So it really is I think it's a pretty even trade, albeit, like I said, still a slight lean in favor of the Toronto side, but it's not a fleece by any means.
Is it a player for a player? No. Does Toronto get an NHL caliber player? Yes. And that's why Leaf fans and other people will say, oh, this is an instant win for the Leafs. And hopefully it is a win for the Leafs, because then that means they're more amenable to being a trade partner in the future. But what this trade accomplishes for the Mammoth is more in the off-ice stuff. And it's all the stuff that we just talked about. It's the extra contract. It's the shedding of the cap space. It's the freeing up of a roster spot. Those are things the Mammoth wanted to accomplish, and with a player who is making enough to make a difference. This was not a league minimum salary, and a player they just didn't see fitting into the plans. So it accomplishes goals that the Mammoth see as valuable. So that is a good trade for the Utah Mammoth.
Certainly. And what it's going to do, Tom, it's going to allow us to have a little bit more of a conversation of what we can possibly expect for free agency, which by the time a lot of people, you guys are listening to this episode, market's opening in just a couple of hours from now. So, there's a lot to expect, Tom, and we can get to that in a little bit too.
Well, let's do it. And today's show brought to you in part by FanDuel. Hey, summer sports are in full swing. Golf, get it? Baseball, get it? Whether you're under the lights for baseball, golfing on the green, or even high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. Look, you're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned on the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh. They've got new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. I'm a big Blue Jays fan. I love following the Jays, what's going on, who's hot, who's not, and trying to kind of turn that into a same-game parlay and then watch the bet right into the ninth inning sometimes. You might bite your nails a little bit more, but that's what makes it fun. FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. Are you new to FanDuel? Well, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Okay, Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño here with you back on Locked on Mammoth. Thank you so much for joining us. We just recapped the Matias Maccelli trade. We're going to jump in talking about free agency in the countdown here. Another contract for the Mammoth. Also, we're going to talk also about McBain as we teased in that first segment. But Robyn, oh, by the way, hey, if you like what you hear, please subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything. It's absolutely free. And we bring you all kinds of fun stuff all the time, some food for thought, reaction, analysis, insight. Please subscribe here. You can get us anywhere you get your podcasts if you'd prefer the audio, the video side on YouTube. Thank you so much for being a part of it. While you're here, hit that thumbs up button, smash the old like, if you will, and it helps us with the algorithm, and it also helps you find more great hockey content as well. So, Robyn, most folks are catching this Tuesday morning. Free agency will go wide open at noon and sometimes at 12:00 and 5 seconds. We get our first contract signing. Now, obviously, they didn't do a deal in 5 seconds, but I think that we already know a couple of things. Not John Tavares, sorry. He's going back to Toronto, but Jonathan Toews is going to Winnipeg. We already know that. We already know that there's not going to be a Sam Bennett on the market. We're still wondering what the heck is going to happen exactly with Mitch Marner. So there's still some questions coming into this, even though a few things have been resolved.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of those what you're going to see, there's like, again, potential sign-in trades that can happen, even leading to that moment. I think what's important to say, I think to start off with, when it comes to the negotiation period, if you want to get that extra year, it has to be done. It had to have been done a couple of hours ago when everyone's listening to this, right? It had to have been done by midnight Eastern of the night before, if you wanted to get that 8th year. But I don't think we're really having to deal with that with any teams out there right now. But there will be potential sign and trade. You mentioned a potential deal for Mitch Marner coming in. The Vegas Golden Knights are very much on that list, and they're trying to figure out where that might happen. It seems like there's a decent likelihood for that to happen. But there's also offer sheets coming in. There is other trade potential. Because, hey, this is Christmas in July. There's so much that happens, Tom.
There really is. And I mean, there's a bunch of big names. I feel like we have talked, Robyn, so much about Mitch Marner. And part of that's because I enjoy talking about Mitch Marner.
Yeah.
But there's other names. Believe it or not, folks, there are other free agents available. The crop is not thick. But, Robyn, you like to talk about Brock Besser. Evgeny Dodonov, Jonathan Drouin, Nikolai Ehlers from the Jets, who I particularly like. But there's some other names out there. Michael Granlund. What about Patrick Kane? Who's now, I think, 36. So there's still some names out there that could make an impact. And of course, Brad Marchand, still waiting to see if he's going to end up back in Florida or not. So there's a lot of intrigue swirling.
There is a lot of intrigue swirling. And I think a lot of people are probably asking, will Utah go after these any of these big name players? Are they going to make a big contract? I mean, we've kind of already teased it over the weekend, Tom, where we don't really think they're going to go anything big, anything major here. But it does intrigue me because of the trade from Matias Maccelli. We talked about that extra roster spot. We talked about the extra cap space. It does make me think maybe they might still go for someone.
Yeah, and that is essentially what Bill Armstrong has been saying all along is don't expect us to throw $15 million out there. He keeps coming back to that figure. So clearly he's not in the Marner sweepstakes unless Mitch Marner somehow decides he's not worth that, which good luck.
Yeah.
I think it does say that, again, the $9.5 million salary is what they would have had to take on from the Islanders if they did get Barzal. I think that is your indicator of what the tolerance level is for the Mammoth. I don't think they touch double-digit millions. I don't think they go to 10 on a player. Unless they just decided it's a once-in-a-lifetime risk, but I just don't even see them doing it.
Okay, then here's a follow-up question for you, Tom. I already know your opinion on this, but since it is the day of free agency, let's go ahead and address it again. That is around the money, the dollar value, or slightly higher than the dollar value, maybe, but I'm giving a plus or minus like $1 million or whatever leeway of what Brad Marchand might be expecting. Your thoughts?
First of all, I wish I had a plus or minus $1 million.
Right.
I wish I had that laying around. Then, when it comes to Marchand, here's the thing. This is nothing against Marchand, the player, but he's 37. Rumor is he wants 4 years. It'll take him to 41 or maybe 42 by the time the contract's over.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, I think the player Brad Marchand is a guy who goes to a team that needs just that little something to get him over the hump and win a cup, not get him over the hump and make the playoffs. That's where Utah is. We need a little something to get over the hump and make the playoffs. They are not a get over the hump and win the Stanley Cup. So to me, Marchand's not a bad player. He's a good player. Mm-hmm. He could probably come in and be a good veteran leader. He's the kind of guy you'd rather have on your team than have playing against you. But Robyn, I really feel like he is not the final piece of a cup-winning puzzle for the Utah Mammoth, and I think that money could be better spent elsewhere.
It really can be, and it's interesting to observe all this, Tom. I think you and I have gone at pretty length discussing the kind of player Utah might be chasing after. We talked about them going after a top 6 forward, and look what they did over, just before the weekend, this last weekend. They acquired JJ Peterka, a top 6 forward. Now there's a little bit more flexibility where they might sign elsewhere. Where else are the biggest needs, Tom, that this team could really should be searching for and adding that extra depth, and where will they be spending the money?
Everybody wants a first line center. Okay, and Utah is not the only. If you could get a true 1C, number one, you're going to pay through the nose for them, and number two, they just don't come up that often because teams lock those guys down. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, every team in the league, with very few exceptions, would probably trade out, and have a better 1C. Well, okay, so that guy's not available. One thing, Robyn, I thought about this just as I was kind of going over my list earlier. There is uncertainty in goal. And as much as I would love to see Connor Ingram back healthy, full-time, backing up like he did last year when he was good to go, that is a concern. The goalie market is super thin in free agency, but a lot of the goalies that are out there are mid-tier or below. So maybe you get a little insurance there. The other thing is last year showed us, hockey gods forbid that you can never have enough defensive depth. I think last year was freakish with the amount of injuries Utah had to deal with. Hopefully they never see that again, but I would not feel awful about finding a little bit more depth defensively, and maybe depending on what happens with McBain, who are you trying to replace? You're out Maccelli, you're out Carcone, you're out Bukestad. Those are the guys that you're really and Doan. Those are the guys that you're out up front. So are you looking to replace one of them? Well, that's bottom 6. So that's where you're looking.
And, there is a lot to be said about adding a trustworthy bottom 6 player. Because people always love to talk about top 6, right? But bottom 6, to me, they're just as important. You need those just as much.
You do, and you need a third line that's going to go out there and give you some tough minutes sometimes, and you need a fourth line that can go out there and when you're losing can maybe turn the tide of a hockey game for you. And that's where I don't mind signing a veteran player. Please don't think I'm against signing veterans. I'm not. I think it's very useful as long as they understand their role coming in, and they understand that, hey, you're going to be here for leadership on and off the ice, but especially if you're in a bottom 6 role, you better be a hardworking veteran player on the ice and lead by example.
Absolutely. Well, Tom, here is a question that I just saw come into our way through YouTube. And this is a question that was on our last episode. Might as well bring it up now because it does kind of pertain to the conversation we're talking about, Tom. With the addition of a trade, and this is going to be a lot, so bear with me here. It says, what are the odds of trading Vancouver for Quinn Hughes, or would you rather sign either Aaron Ekblad, Ehlers, or Besser? So he's like, this person says they're used to the MLB where there is no salary cap and teams are more careless about trades.
I like it. You know what I think about that, Robyn? I think I'll tell you after this break. All right, we are back here on Locked On Mammoth. I threw Robyn a curveball there, everybody.
I was like, oh, wait, where am I going?
Absolutely threw Robyn a curveball there. So Robyn does the producing, and we both do a lot of the behind the scenes stuff here, but Robyn's the one that is always clicking stuff and doing it. That's why
I'm getting up on here.
I just show up and talk. That's all I do. So Robyn's doing all the behind the scenes stuff, and always appreciate that. Thank you, Robyn. But sometimes Tom throws a little curveball in there, and it gets exciting for a moment.
I'm just like, where am I going?
That's what happened.
What am I doing today?
That was pretty funny. That was pretty funny. I enjoyed that one. All right. So we want to talk a little bit about that trade proposal idea. Also, we're going to talk about McBain, Onyebuchi re-signing. We'll talk about that contract here in a minute. Robyn, it's interesting. Baseball has a luxury tax. So, yes. And if I think it is a 3-time offender to the tax, then your tax goes up. So you can spend, but you're just going to be taxed on what you spend. So,
and the other aspect to that too is there are teams out there who have just such a high bankroll that they don't care if they're penalized, that they have to get the extra tax. And we're talking the Boston Red Sox, the New York Yankees, the LA Dodgers, the San Francisco Giants. Those players, those teams, those organizations just have a ridiculously ungodly amount of money that they don't care.
Yeah, the Padres have been throwing it around pretty good in recent years. So everybody's a little bit different, and just because teams have the money doesn't mean they spend it. That said, even in the pre-cap days in the NHL, just because you had the money and you spent it didn't mean you did well. And I think so. When you're breaking down all of those players, I like Nikolai Ehlers. I like the age equation, 29. Because that means to me, so when I look at a player, I think, who are they in 3 years? For the most part, unless it's an older player at this point because they serve a different purpose. But I think, who are they going to be in 3 years? Who's Brock Besser going to be in 3 years? Who's Ehlers going to be in 3 years? Where is their spot in the lineup? But where's Patrick Kane going to be in 3 years? So I don't mind either one of them. I think I like Besser's physical game a little bit more.
Fits a little bit more into that kind of archetype of what Armstrong expects. But Ehlers is a skill guy. Right. Ehlers is a skill guy. But picking up Peterka now, I don't think you need Ehlers. That to me, let's not do too much of a good thing. We saw what happened when Nashville did too much of a good thing. They had a horrible year. Right. So I think that you do need to round out the team a little more. And so a little wrecking ball like Brock Besser running around, who's still putting up 50 points. I don't mind that at all. I don't know that I'm putting a lot of money out there in free agency for defensemen. I just think you can spend the money better somewhere else. Yeah. And that also goes into the question about the trade, right? For trading for Quinn Hughes. Like, everyone would love Quinn Hughes, right? But the value for Quinn Hughes, Utah would have to they'd have to sell too much, and I'd be comfortable with selling. Well, you would have to give up Durzi, Marino, Mata plus. But I mean, would Hughes be a player you'd love to have on your team? Absolutely. Like, anyone would love to have one of, if not the best defenseman currently playing the National Hockey League. And I would not take him. I would definitely consider where he would fit on the roster. And then, what you're giving up. Honestly, you kind of have to trade the defenseman that currently occupies the spot he's going into. Correct. So, I mean, if you envision him on the top pair, that's either Durzi or Sergachev, because you got to make room for him. So, and maybe if you're able to give up a 3-4 pair defenseman and now you're just deeper, maybe it slides, things around a little bit. But I don't know, Robyn. It'd be a nice problem to have, but I
I just don't think that that's where Utah wants to focus on its money. I think they're happy with the D as far as the depth. I think the money spent, they're cool with it. So
yeah, and I certainly think I don't think it will be too much of a problem there. But all right, Tom. So there are a couple things that we do want to get to before we close things off on this episode. So first of all, I just saw while I was checking through, I got the alert from Mammoth PR letting us know at the time of this recording, by the way, that Jack McBain as well Jack McBain has been offered a qualifying offer, and Kylo Yamamoto has not been issued a qualifying offer. I don't think we were surprised by that. Yamamoto's will become a free agent, and McBain will at least have his rights retained, but that won't keep Tom a team like, say, Pittsburgh, who has been rumored to really be interested in Jack McBain, of trying to issue an offer sheet, unless McBain agrees to the qualifying offer.
Right, and there's always, don't forget the possibility of arbitration and all that. And what happens is then if there is an offer sheet, it depends on what the compensation is as to whether, or what the offer is as to whether you get compensation. That's what I mean to say. So could go either way. I like McBain. I hope they retain him. I hope he signs the QO, but we don't know what it is at this point, and we'll know whether or not he's going to sign it. A guy that I would not like to see walk, honestly, for nothing, or even for a little bit of compensation in the form of a pick or two. I like what he brings to the table. I like his game. I would like to see him continue to try to grow in a Mammoth uniform. So hopefully he's back. But
yeah,
but I mean, Robyn, look, the Bruins want him for a reason. He's a player that they think can return them to kind of the big bad Bruins type of mindset. And I think that you can kind of see Boston's trending in that direction. They want to get mean and nasty and hard to play against again.
Boston, Pittsburgh, whoever it is, right? Like they want him. Like, yeah. And there is that legitimate interest, and I think that's like, and if I'm like it probably will make you think too, if you're Bill Armstrong. All right, how do you at what point do you are you going to be willing to match the offer? Which I'm pretty sure he would be, depending on how much either a Boston or a Pittsburgh will be offering.
I could see him in Philly very easily too. Philadelphia would be another spot where he'd go in and be a natural fit. I would love to see him increase the sandpaper in his game.
Oh yeah, it would be nice. Absolutely nice. But Tom, again, at the time of this recording, we don't know if he's accepted that qualifying offer or not. We'll definitely keep you guys updated. We'll be giving as many live updates as we can as the market opens in a couple of hours from now.
Stay in Utah, Jack.
Yeah. Jack McBain, you're listening to this, stay in Utah. We want you here. But last little order of business, Tom. Montana Onyebuchi re-signed on a 2-way contract. Nice little deal to have.
Yeah, you know what? I like Onyebuchi. I think that, especially on a 2-way deal, we're talking about depth. And again, I mean, I think last year was an extreme case of the injury bug, but it shows how important it is having that depth and a player you trust. There is something very important when you have a player in your system, you like them, and you know that you can count on them for certain things. Whatever their toolbox is, you understand it. You're not going to try to figure it out. That's why I like them bringing him back. I think
it's that adding that level of trust among the Tucson Roadrunners, because I think Tucson, sometimes they want a kid who's reliable, who can play in that position. And yeah, it's a 2-way deal, so he still has the chance of getting called up, but he spends most of the year in the minor leagues at the AHL level. And what his role is he really has to be that flexible guy to be ready to step up in case let's say your Maverick Lamoureux ends up starting the year with Utah, or other guys end up saying, "Oh wow, we're now losing more guys up to the big club, and we need you to step up now."
Yeah, and also, Robyn, I mean, let's not forget, just because they kind of lost confidence in him at the end of the year, but Yusuf Alimaki is still on the books for another year, $2 million. But I really like the depth. And you know what? Here's the other thing that we need to consider, and by we, I mean fans of the Utah Mammoth, you need to win at the American Hockey League level. You need to have a good winning base that, guys can grow in and is a positive culture of development. I think they took a step forward this year. They lost to the eventual Calder Cup champion Abbotsford in that first round, but I think they played very well against them. And who knows, maybe a little bit of puck luck going the other way, Tucson could have advanced. So that's important too. And I think he's a good cornerstone for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to see that. I would like to see that continued growth. I mean, Tucson, it was a little bit of a tougher year for them, but heck, they're going to have maybe some better talent come in. Maybe Anya Bucci can be a part of a team that makes a Calder Cup run next year.
I would love that. That would be awesome. So, you know what? It's Robyn, there's so many great things going on here coming into free agency. We may see, some little deals moving around, but really the focus on July 1. So if I'm going to ask you, if you're going to be like, hey, here's my home run signing, the guy I wish against wishing, hoping against hope, who would you like to see them bring in? Money's no object, Robyn. Let's ignore the cap for a minute. Who do you bring in?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean, to me, it's hard for me to just swing for the fences on a like this, Tom, because a couple of things. One, because my brain instantly goes for what I think would fit perfectly into Utah system, as well as money. I'm always going to think about that, but I mean, I don't think it's really any surprise. You've kind of already said his name, and we've already talked about it. And I've said his name over the course of the last couple of months in Brock Boeser. I really think that he would be a pretty good fit. I know he wants to leave. He's has no intention of returning to Vancouver. So, if you're Utah, make your sell.
I like that. I do enjoy the Brock Boeser look. I think that's pretty cool. It is a good one for me. I gotta tell you, this is kind of a weird one, and this is on nobody's map.
Okay.
But talking about a veteran player who could come in, who might not break the bank, and who might just be looking for a good place to play for another year or two, is Patrick Kane. Kane winning 3 Stanley Cups with Chicago, has some offensive talent, but is probably willing to accept a bottom 6 role at this point. Maybe a team that's got a real shot at a cup like Edmonton takes a look at him. I don't know, but he wouldn't be the worst guy to mentor some of your young up-and-coming goal-scoring talent, of which you now have plenty in the Mammoth household.
I mean, anytime you have three-time Stanley Cup winner on your team. I mean, that's, you listen to that guy, you really do, and I think it would be worth, especially for a young team like Utah. They could use that level of a mentorship, and I think that's not a bad pick right there. It's not a bad one. It is definitely under the radar because not a lot of people like to talk about Patrick Kane for one reason or another.
Yeah, and I just don't think he'd be that expensive. I don't think he's a break the bank, and I also don't think he's probably cheaper if you give him 3 years as opposed to 2. So I don't know. We'll see. But that would be an interesting one, I think, for Utah. If they're not going to spend a lot of money, that's my budget pick.
Yeah, but also when I will add this last little bit, we should expect maybe some movement around the goaltending front because as much as we love Ingy. I mean, we need it. Utah needs a backup goalie ready to stand up right there next to Veggie. That it's because we don't know.
Well, that's just it. It's the uncertainty. If we knew, I love Connor Ingram, and I would love it to be Connor Ingram, but it's just the uncertainty around it. So if they had answers to this question heading into July 1, and maybe they do, maybe they're keeping it in-house, maybe they do know their answer, but if they don't, I think you need insurance.
Yeah, because I don't think they have the trust yet in your Jackson Stauber or Van Valta. They are AHL goalies at this point, and don't think they can make that big of a step.
Yep, and I'm only an e-bug, so.
And you're only, you're preparing to be the full-time e-bug in 2026 for the Utah Mammoth.
That's right, get my stretching in. Let's get ready to go. Okay. So that's going to require a lot more than that. But Robyn, anything else you want to add? This has been a pretty packed episode. A lot going on.
Oh, absolutely packed episode. No, just everyone like enjoy free agency period. It is an absolute blast. Know that I'm probably going to be just either on my phone hitting the refresh button or watching the broadcast, getting ready for that countdown.
So, Robyn, where can they find you watching social media like a hawk?
You can find me personally at Robyn_Leano. But if you want to go ahead and follow the show, you can find us at Locked On Mammoth, primarily active on the app formerly known as Twitter.
I'm on Blue Sky at Tom Talks, Twitter at Callahan on Air. Throw questions at us if you want. You can also drop some in the chat. Obviously, we brought one forward from YouTube into this episode as well, and we'll continue to do that as we have the free agency shakeout in front of us all week long. We will be right there with instant reaction and analysis, as well as in-depth episodes for you as well. So thanks for joining us once again, everybody. For Robyn, I'm Tom. We'll talk to you next time on Locked On Mammoth.